Yeah, so the first thing, of course, you do is you show a nice picture of the country. I think what's really probably quite well known, it's quite a mountainous country. And certainly when you see photographs in about Georgia, it sort of focuses on this sort of habitat. But it's also got some very large plain areas, some steppe, almost desert-like areas as well, but very mountainous where we're starting off. And then the next thing you do when you do a talk is you tell everyone where it is, of course. So you kind of don't assume anyone knows where Georgia is. It's not in America. And well, it is in America, but this is where it is. It sits just to the east of Turkey, just above to the east of Turkey. And just close up again, just to give you a close up of the country itself. Not a massive country. Some countries you will have heard of quite a lot about in recent days. So it's bordered by Russia, and Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Turkey. So we have Caspian Sea on the right, Black Sea. So that sort of gives you a sort of a flavour of the location, but also why it might be so attractive for migration routes for starters, because it's a land bridge between two areas of two large seas. So it's quite a funnel for raptors, and I will talk a bit about that at the end of the trip. Now, one of the things that was a little bit annoying when I went, as I say, the year before last, the year before that, was that you had to go via Istanbul. Nothing against going to Istanbul, except that the timings of the flight meant you got to Georgia at 2 o'clock in the morning. So it was a really late flight, and now they do direct flights from the UK. So quite a bit more pleasant on British Airways. But anyway, we went Turkish Airlines to Istanbul, had an unpleasant stopover, and then get to Georgia into the capital, which is Tbilisi. Um, all you want to do is go to sleep, but you're quite excited, of course. You're quite excited by the opportunity to get up in the morning after about 5 hours sleep and start exploring the country. So this, I mentioned, it's primarily a popular place for bird watching because of the things you get in terms of Europe. I mean, this is right on the edge. This is Asia and Europe meeting this country, I suppose. And there are a group of birds that you look in the field guide, and you probably won't ever see unless you go to these countries. Georgia being probably the best place. Georgia and Armenia are often visited at the same time by bird watchers. And I've just got a picture here of it's a stunning picture of the page of red starts in the Collins Field Guide. And you'll see the purple patch on the map there is for Gudenstart's red start, which is that incredible red start at the bottom of the page. I mean, all red starts are pretty smart, aren't they? But look at that one. It's bigger and just a bit more showy, and that lives, as you can see, in the Caucasian mountains. So that's the sort of thing that people get quite excited by, and you can see why. Um, and just to give you a little clue of the Nature Trek, I do these tours on behalf of Nature Trek. So I'm a freelance tour leader in my spare time, like most of their leaders. In fact, just do one or two tours a year, and I'm in that fold. Um, but just looking at the map here, the larger map on the left, you can see where Tbilisi is, and the route we're going to take right into the mountains is to Kazbegi, right at the top of the map there. Um, and then we're going to go back to Tbilisi and then way out to the east. And that Vashlabani National Park, that green lump in the corner, is the sort of stepland area, which is a tremendous experience to go to, and habitats in between, of course. The other map shows you another popular reason for going to Georgia, and I mentioned migration of birds of prey. And following that coast down, you go to a place some of you may have visited, perhaps Batumi. It's quite a modern incredible modern city. But it's also a place where people go up onto the mountains and sit in a deck chair and watch huge numbers of birds of prey going north and south. Let's start off in Tbilisi. Perhaps pretty typical these days of a mixture of old and new. So the traditional buildings and beautiful buildings. In fact, in the south, the lower picture there, and then some more modern constructions and sort of as a central park in Tbilisi, which is really quite developed and quite stunning. Some cracking Soviet style imagery as well. So we obviously a former Soviet USSR country, Eastern Bloc country, whatever you want to call it. So we have quite a lot of imagery like this, and I'm afraid I do not know who this is or who it's supposed to be, which I should have furnished you with all the background history to this. But what an imposing figure she is. You can see this statue from our hotel. But let's get out of the city. We've had a nice sleep or a short sleep, had breakfast, and we're going out into the pine woods that are around Tbilisi and the sort of foothills around Tbilisi itself. One of the birds we really want to see is the nuthatch here, which is called Krupa's nuthatch, and that has a quite an easterly distribution. So you can see this thing in Turkey. But I think most people tend to see this bird on Lesbos, which is a very popular place to go for bird watching, a very small island, Eastern Mediterranean, and as a result, it's very well known for where all the things live. But you can see Krupa's nuthatch, which has this beautiful rusty patch on the breast. Um, so we see that hopefully on the way through. Then we're going to go, as I mentioned, due north into the mountains. That's quite a journey. And on the way, we get into some quite high countryside, so a lot of snow. So we're passing through forestry, but then into the more sort of alpine areas. Photograph here of yes, I'm not going to get political here, but this was built by the Russians. It's called the Peace Monument. So it's a place to stop and get an amazing view over the mountains in this area. And it's a magnet. People are there doing not jet skis. What are those things? Snowmobiles, and there's people selling hot dogs and all that sort of usual thing you get with a stop off. But the views are absolutely incredible. As you can see from the lower photograph, the classic alpine type of habitat, and as a result, so let's just the pass itself is 2,300 meters above sea level, and on the way to and on it's an old military road which goes straight into Russia. We don't do that on this trip. So the sorts of birds you get there are the sort of things you might see in the Pyrenees or the Alps. So we have starting at the top left, chough, red-billed chough. Below that, the alpine chough, and then we have an alpine accentor and a water pipit. And these are classic things that you have to go up quite sort of high altitude birds, especially the alpine chough and the alpine accentor, as its name suggests. And water pipits are perhaps not as showy, but they're quite nice. I think there's a slaty grey on the back and a pink flush to the breast. You can just about see on that photograph. Um, as the country's geography is quite isolated with two mountain ranges, the Caspian and the Caucasus mountain range. It tends to lead to quite a lot of birds that have races. Water pipit is one of those, so it's quite similar in many ways, but there's slightly different subspecies. Should you be interested in such things? But a little bit more exciting here. This is just a photograph of snow, but we all got quite excited because you can see a line just north of center of that going diagonally down, and those tracks were made by a brown bear and brown bear and two cubs. So we were enjoying the view, looking for birds of prey passing over, looking for the choughs and ring ouzels and things like that that live up there. And our leader said, "I've got a bear," and this isn't something we expected to see. Although obviously they occur in Georgia, but you don't go to Georgia looking for bears. Probably there are easier places to see them. So we managed to watch this bear, and those are the footprints it left. Did cause quite an interest. That's not just our group gazing, but quite a lot of the tourists that were there for the view as well came and enjoyed the bear. Whether many of them saw it through our telescopes or not is quite an art looking through optics, I think, if you're not used to doing it. So anyway, that was a fantastic start. My first ever brown bear. Actually, that was 3 years ago. I've seen them in Romania as well, which is a lot more straightforward, uh, but fantastic to see an unexpected brown bear. That's not a strange thing to say. Um, there's the view. Now, I think probably that you can look at this in a couple of ways. You can think, wow, that's a great place to stand, and then you can look at what you're standing on and think, I think I'll go back to solid ground. It is made of concrete, but looking at this photograph now, I'm thinking, yeah, maybe I won't go there next time. It looks a little bit fragile, but it clearly isn't. It's fine. It's quite a dramatic photograph. The fact that you can see underneath the concrete platform. But nice place to stop, stretch your legs on your way to Kazbegi. Um, and you get to Kazbegi in the afternoon, going through mountain passes. And I think this is the place people head for because it's a reasonable sized town, about 40 miles from the Russian border. So really quite close to the border of the country. There's a sort of a 15, 20 mile area where no one goes for obvious reasons. They're not the best of neighbors. But this place is just so beautiful. It's a well-developed town, but it's a mountain town, and you can see the views here. Um, the reason people go here is because it gives you access to high altitude species. And yeah, so we have stunning churches on the. This is the church just above Kazbegi, so lovely view there. And this is probably the first building not too picturesque perhaps, but it's a very functional hotel that we stay in. But right on the doorstep of some of these wonderful things that you might see. That's called the Gold Kazbegi or something like that. But it's a good hotel to stay in. Another high altitude species which we might hope to see in the mountain passes or around the town in the higher areas is shorelark. So shorelark, I think in Britain we think of as a winter visitor that you might see on the coast or in sort of Spurn areas or in the Norfolk coast on the shingle. Uh, we sometimes get numbers of those on the East Coast especially. Um, and But it's a high altitude breeder, and this is a quite a distinctive race of shorelark. It's got a lovely chestnut area around the back of its head because this is a Caucasian shorelark, to give it its full name. But the first morning we're going to go here. So this is about 5 or 10 minute drive from our hotel. And often, if you go here, you will see other people, and they will be gazing up into the mountains to look for the speciality. Now, what we're hoping to see in this case is the Caucasian snowcock, um, and that's about the size of a turkey. A huge bird, very high altitude. And the other bird we hope to see is the Caucasian black grouse. So very similar to the black grouse that we have. You're a lot nearer to black grouse than I am down here in Cambridgeshire, but very similar looking bird, but a very long tail. So those are the two birds we hope to see. And just to give you another sort of local point of reference, the Caucasian snowcock sounds like a curlew. So you're in this sort of natural amphitheatre and you hear a curlew call, it's the bird you're looking for. I've got a couple of photographs here. One is mine, and one is a stock photograph that someone else took. You can probably guess which isn't mine. So, the top rather amazing photograph is of a Caucasian snowcock and chicks, and then below that you have the black grouse, the Caucasian black grouse. And you can see both of these, but if you want to know how good my photography is, that's my snowcock photograph. Now, you can see the bird. It's this area, just the right of center. It's looking up, it's holding its head up, and it's calling. You may have to take my word for it, but that was, I don't know, probably about a mile away, and with my telephone attached to my telescope. So yeah, quite a long way away. But yeah, you can't really get too much of an impression on that. I have my own photographs of Caucasian black grouse as well, but they're dots like this as well. The good thing about them, I suppose you can see one or two of the really long tails, and they're really curved, long black feathers, as opposed to the black grouse we have in the UK, which is a short curly feather. These have a very long bowed feather at the back, um, but quite easy to see because they like walking around on snow. So let's look at those maps again. We've seen the Gudenstart's red start map there with a little patch in Georgia. Then it occurs again in the Central Asian area. Caucasian grouse, the Caucasian black grouse, the top map, that's much more restricted, just to the main mountain ranges in and around Georgia. The Caucasian snowcock, the bird I've just shown you an awful photograph of, is just in the Caucasian mountains. There is a Caspian snowcock as well, but that's in the mountain range below it. Again, you probably don't need me to tell you that, but the fact is there are two different species of snowcock, and they are in each stick to their own mountain range. So you have to go to southern part of Georgia or in Armenia to see the Caspian snowcock. And then the last bird, the bottom southeast photo map there is the great rose finch. Now, great rose finches, um, uh, you can see a little population of great rose finch in Georgia, and then the rest in Central Asia, going down into Southeast Asia, almost into the higher grounds there. So, quite easy to see in one respect in terms of distance. So becomes quite a popular place, and you can see why people want to see them. So there's your Gudenstart's red start, and then the beast on the right is a giant rose finch, great rose finch, sorry. And the story behind these two birds is that they, in the wintertime, they will come to low altitudes to feed. These are birds of extreme high altitude to breed, but in the winter they come low. And what we're doing is we're timing our visit to have access. The roads are cleared, you can get there, and hopefully keep your fingers crossed that these birds haven't gone up the scree slopes up into the high mountains, because you can't get up there. You have to hope that they're still in their wintering grounds. The first year we went, we saw the first day we got our bags out of the minibus, put them into that hotel I showed you a photograph of, looked at the bushes out the back, buckthorn. This is sea buckthorn, in fact, the bushes, and there was a Gudenstart's red star on it, and I called everyone out, and we went for a little walk, and we saw another six in the buckthorn, and then we didn't see another one all the trip. That was it. We saw six on the first day, so I think we were quite lucky. The great rosefinch, on the other hand, we went up the road to that viewpoint where we saw the snowcocks, and you gaze up scree slopes, hoping that some of these haven't gone to high altitudes, because they're not. I mean, it's a big finch, but it's still quite a small bird. But they are pink, so they're quite stunning if you get a nice view. One of our party spied some finches flying, and they landed, and indeed they were great rose finches. And this isn't my photograph. The red star is my photograph, but the rose finch isn't. And here's a couple more of the Gudenstart's red start on the buckthorn. And just to give you some proper flavour, that's my own photograph of a great a giant rosefinch. So quite a little bit further away, but I had to show you a proper photograph so you can see what they look like. But quite an exciting bird to see. I've mentioned these two. I've mentioned a ring ousel already. So a bird we're familiar with in the UK. Again, you're probably a bit closer to breeding habitat for ring ousels than I am in Cambridgeshire, but Bedfordshire, Cambridgeshire borders where I'm talking to you from. But we do get them on passage. But in Georgia, um, they are breeding birds, as you would see in most high altitude areas across Europe. And then below that is the rock thrush, which is just a beautiful bird. Yeah, so rock thrush you'd seen in Spain and southern France, and across many other European countries is also a common bird in this type of habitat. And a couple of other birds that that are very well known even for non-bird watchers. Well, certainly one of them is the wall creeper. A wall creeper is just unbelievably beautiful bird that creeps up rock slip, quarries and rock faces, and is quite quite a pale grey. But when it flies, it's got these incredibly beautiful wings, huge wings for a small bird, in actual fact. So when it flies, it just appears to triple in size. Amazing thing. So that's we're in habitat for wall creepers, and we've seen them just down the outskirts of the town. We've seen them prodding around in grass tussocks on grassy slopes. So they're quite a lovely thing to see. The bird below is another eastern bird. So it's quite familiar to maybe a redpoll, I suppose, in some ways, but you can see it's very, very different in that it's a very dark, quite a big, robust bird. And this is actually a serin, a red-fronted serin. You get these in a few countries, but it's a real eastern bird. So you probably get them into Central Asia, but Turkey is probably the closest. Turkey and Georgia are probably the closest places to the UK that we get the red-fronted serin. So that's the only one I've ever seen. You do get them in the Middle East as well, for that matter, but you have to enjoy yourself while you're there. So there's the town in the background, and here's us, one of the groups I took to Georgia looking for a wall creeper. So it's a hard job. Someone has to do it, and yeah, it's a lovely place to be. I'm sure you do get some wet and pleasant weather there as well, but we were very blessed at the last. I think it was about the last few days of April and first few days of May we were there. And heading further up the road, you can go a little way further up the road. And this is just looking back to the town, and the river valley is the River Terek. Those of you that know your birds will have heard of the Terek sandpiper. That's the River Terek. Doesn't look particularly wet at this time of year. But yeah, that goes way into Russia, the Terek River. Yes, I just took a photograph of that lovely public convenience sign. Yes, a little bit of sense of humor. Mentioned things that you get in alpine areas. The bearded vulture or the lammergeier is another bird you could expect to see flying over your head in this area. There's quite a good population of bearded vulture. It's a dramatic photograph, lovely, such a huge bird, something like 11-foot wingspan, I think. It's incredibly large vulture. And this animal is a tur, East Caucasian tur. So this is an endemic to the mountain range as well. So it's I suppose it's a goat, a species of goat, TUR is its name. And we actually saw these from our hotel car park, just by putting a scope and searching around. I say our wonderful local guide was waiting for us, and he put his scope and just scanned the hillside until he found a group of them, and we saw them on several days, but never too close. But that again is a photograph taken through my telescope. East Caucasian Tour, TUR. And this is a Caucasian squirrel. So this was in a park in the town. So a Persian squirrel is its other name. Very nice, very photogenic. And just something out sort of interest to visitors that's not a really wildlife point of reference, but um, the road I mentioned was an ex-military road into in sort of north-south, but it's also a very good trade route. So you get a lot of Russian vehicles, you get a lot of Turkish vehicles going the other way, and essentially the road isn't big enough for all this. And especially some of the mountain passes, the tunnels, they're not big enough. So they alternate the traffic. So they stop the traffic one way, and then you have 20 minutes of the trucks coming one way, and then stopping, and then 20 minutes the other way. Uh, um, and there's a sort of system, and I really tried hard to understand what this system is, but how it works. But you get all those things you can see going off to the distance are lorries parked at the side of the road. This stream of lorries, it's almost all the way back to Tbilisi. It's just constant, and these wait their turn to go through. So I guess they're given a time they can go through. But most of the time, they must spend ages and ages and ages in Georgia waiting. So the infrastructure isn't quite good enough for traffic both ways. But don't worry, the Chinese are sorting it out. They're drilling a big hole through the mountain. So soon this will be a thing of the past, thanks to Chinese investment, which I think is quite a common story in many countries in the world. So yeah, quite a thing to drive past all these lorries not going anywhere. So we've talked about Kazbegi. There's a close-up of the map. That was right at the north of the country, right close to the border. Back to Tbilisi, um, and then we're going to head out east to Shingnagi. Singnagi is a beautiful, beautiful town, and it gives us a great base to be for a different sort of habitat. Passing other areas. This is Ananuri Church, and getting to some sort of lowland forest areas, largely beech forest. And into the beech forest, you get beautiful birds like a red-breasted flycatcher, which is just a stunning bird. Again, you get this in many European countries, especially in the east. And yeah, they breed here, especially you get some of the other um, um, birds that collared, semi-collared flycatcher and grey-headed woodpecker, some of those other things that you might get in European woodlands. We spend a little bit of time quite close to well, sort of more rolling habitat here, very close to the Azeri border, the Azerbaijan border. Again, probably not the best of neighbours, but they're sort of it's never really any problem. But there's sort of I suppose a cautious, watchful eye on, but from both sides. And it's been like that for a long time. But the habitat here is great for a lot of the more sort of open country species. So we have a rock thrush here, a blue rock thrush. I'm sorry, we've had rock thrush already, and that's a blue rock thrush. Keeping in the rock flavor, we have Western rock nuthatch, which is a huge, huge nuthatch. We've seen our nuthatch in this country, and this is about half as big again, I should think, a very robust bird that lives in cracks in rocks and builds mud around the crack in the rock and the hole. And then the other photograph is a monastery, and this is called David Gareja. So it's a rock monastery, so monastery built into rocks. I've got another couple of photographs here, and we'll spend half a day looking around this area for wildlife. but also to visit the monastery itself. So really quite splendid. The writing, the actual writing, Georgian writing, the script is really quite beautiful as well. Um, so it's quite an amazing thing to see someone writing. But another photograph here gives you an impression of that. Quite an amazing site to visit. But out and about as well, we'll see rollers and hoopoes and bee eaters and wheatears and several species of wheatear. So we can spend quite some time here, and also spend some time around any lakes that we pass. We do go past some wetlands, and again, giving an idea that it's a great place for migration in terms of birds of prey, but it's also a bit of a funnel for land birds as well. But Singnagi is where we're heading because we're going to be based there for the next um, few days. And Singnagi is a beautiful old town, cobbled streets, very old buildings, perched high above sort of quite flat areas. But perhaps its most famous claim to fame, or the area indeed, but I think Singnagi was the center of it. It's where wine was invented. So these were the first time wine was made. So yeah, it's been cultivating grapes for about 8,000 years apparently. So they're pretty good at it. And you don't see Georgian wine in the supermarkets. I suspect it's because they keep it all. And we might have had some when we were there, and that was really nice. But yeah, lovely place to go. But while we're talking about wine, let's talk about food, because there's just another aspect. And if you've been to Georgia, you'll know what I'm going to say. But they are incredibly generous with the amount of food. Let's put it that way. They give you a meal time, um, ridiculously so. They will just bring. You'll sit down. Obviously, you'll have your wine, huge carafes of wine, and then they'll bring food out, and then they'll bring food out. After that, they'll bring some food out, and that's before they bring food out, and it just goes on and on and on, and they will put plates down on top of other plates. You just can't keep up. I just don't know how the locals do it, but yeah, you certainly got plenty to eat. Let's pick on one of those things while we're talking about it, and don't concentrate too much on the bright green, refreshing drink in the background. That's probably not as as traditional, but these kinkali, which are um, dumplings, so quite soft outer uh, case, and inside is generally some vegetable mix, but usually mince. Um, and you pick these things up and then you bite them, and they don't tell you that they're also full of gravy. So then the gravy goes all over your clothes, and then you watch someone that knows what they're doing eating them, and they will bite and they will just drink the gravy and then they will eat it. So beware. There's a little tip for you should you go and you haven't seen these things on your plate in front of you. So they are called king cali, and that's a nice view of Singnagi Street. That is where we stayed. That building on the right is our hotel. Just a great place. And go down the road to a restaurant and eat a little bit too much. Some lovely scenes. But what I wanted to talk about next is why one of the reasons we were here. There's some lakes, some wetland areas here, and there's some woodland, scrubland areas we visit. But what we're actually going to do is going to Vashlavani National Park. And I think the best thing to do about describing this is um, it's it's a vast area. We're transported there in these small 4x4s, so three vehicles, and to this area. And there are no road signs. You have no idea where you're going. You get there early morning, so you go through some farmland. You see things that you'd expect to see, like uh, kites and black-headed buntings and rollers and bee eaters and all that sort of business, and wheat ears, corn buntings everywhere. And you then go out onto this sort of plain area, and You spend the whole day here. In fact, you come back at night time. But it's really quite an experience because these guys know where they're going. And, we passed someone driving the other way and they just wound the window down and they just had a map and they just asked our drivers where the hell they were. It was just incredibly confusing. Every so often you'll see a tiny little road sign um, which says something in Georgian. So really good way to do it is to go with an organized tour. But it was just an amazing experience. As you can see, the habitat is almost steppe, almost semi-desert like. We have these gorges as well. We and the guys that are driving the vehicles will they have tea, coffee. We have a lunch with us, so we spend the whole day really well looked after. But it's quite an experience to do this, and you need a whole day to do it. So you just sort of accept that that's what you'll be doing for the whole day, and you end up having a tremendous experience. You're quite tired by the end of it, but I must say I thought it was quite a privilege to be able to go somewhere like this. And the other thing is you don't see anyone else. If you see someone else, it'll be someone that works there, and he has a shepherd and rather a lot of sheep in this case. Sort of things you might see. I mentioned the corn bunting there singing the top left hand side, crested lark on the right at the top, and then below it is the calandra lark. If anyone's been to the steppes in Spain, you'll see these three species there as well. But calandra larks can be extremely common. Beautiful, beautiful lark. It's just a lovely. I kind of like that habitat, I suppose, that sort of semi-desert steppe habitat where you've got these lovely, and then generally brown birds, but beautiful, beautiful song singers. Here's another nice, another nice brown bird with a beautiful song. This is actually Isabeline wheatear. So a rather plain-looking wheatear, but very stately and upright, slightly bigger than the wheatear that we have. And this was a breeding bird. So you're in the time of year, of course, for these birds to be breeding. I've just actually mentioned these. So we have bee eater, the same bee eater across much of Europe, the European bee eater, and the black-headed bunting. And then for a couple of birds here, again, it's a restricted range species on the top. This is Menetr's warbler. We get many warblers in southern around the Mediterranean area, but if you go further east, you get a few more, and then if you go a little bit further east, you get Menetr's warbler, which is into the Middle East and into sort of Central Asia as well. So it's like a pink-breasted greyback, like a subalpine warbler, similar to that sort of type of warbler. And then below that is a black francolin. Now, I'm sure many people may have heard black francolin, especially if you've been to um, Cyprus, where they're very noisy birds, but they're quite shy. So it's a game bird about the size, a bit smaller than a partridge, but very closely related. And we managed to see this one calling and came out of its cover. And I think probably the other thing to mention here, these are the legs of our local guide, and he was fantastic. Every time he saw a reptile, he would just jump out the bus and go and catch it. Whether it was, quite often snakes, he would do that with snakes, and show us the snake because you just never get the chance. But this actually is a lizard. This is the glass lizard. And I've only ever found road casualties of this, but this was a huge, huge animal, really, really an odd-shaped animal. So the glass lizards, if you ever look at them in the reptile book, they're very tapered. So their head and beginning of their body is the obviously thickest part. It just gets gradually thinner. Um, uh, and that, rather than a snake, for instance, it appears to be much the same sort of width all the way along, and then it tapers at the end. Um, but yeah, tremendous, tremendous, and they are called glass lizards because they have this sort of sheen. You can just about see it on the photograph there. Uh, and yeah, he went and found one for us so we can have a good look, and then we let it go, and it went straight down a hole. The other thing you see here are a lot of tortoises, huge, huge tortoises. as well. So you're driving along. And one of the things that really stuck in my mind about this is that when the light was low, when we were getting towards sort of dusk, you were looking across and you could see the mounds of the tortoises walking around, and you can also see these the light reflecting off loads and loads of glass lizards. I don't know how many we saw. Must have been 50, 60 of them. You could just see these. They're almost like lit up lines in the grass, and they were glass lizards that were out and about. So it's really quite an amazing experience. Moving out to some of the countryside outside it, and the following days into more farmland areas, quite close to Azerbaijan border. We came across this group of birds, which I've got a close-up view of. These are the fantastic rose-coloured starlings. Now, rose-coloured, also called rosy starlings or rosy pastas. They've got all sorts of names these days, but I think rose-coloured starling is the one I first heard, so I'm going to call it that. And they nest in colonies. So one of the most amazing things I've ever seen is a colony of these in Bulgaria. Thousands and thousands and thousands of them all nesting in the same quarry. But we had a group of about 300, and they just had a bath, as you can see. But beautiful, beautiful birds, especially the adults are. Well, I think when the young ones can be quite messy, but really, really dramatic, characterful birds, rather like our own starling. Um, and they sometimes have huge numbers visiting countries and sometimes much smaller numbers. So their populations are quite nomadic. Sparrow here, but this is a rock sparrow, also called Petronia. You can see this one is fanning out its tail, so you can see this rock sparrow's one of its identification features are the white spots in its tail. And if you look very closely, you can see that its throat is yellow, so it's also called yellow-throated Petronia. But nice bird. Um, I've referenced Spain a couple of times in the terms of the type of habitat, and it really has quite a lot of similarities with the plains of Spain. And this is one of the common birds that you might see somewhere like that. So this is a Montague's harrier. They also get pallid harriers there, but Montague's harriers, yeah, it's just a beautiful, a delicate, and yeah, beautiful bird to watch. Now it doesn't get better than this, really. I know this is the reason most people would go to Georgia is to see this bird there, which is the Armenian gull. Yeah, all right. So they're not very exciting. I know gulls don't excite that many people, but some people can be quite obsessive about them. The thing with Armenian gulls is that they're an inland gull. They breed on inland lakes. So unless you go to certain countries, you won't see this bird. So this is a rather poor photograph of a group of Armenian gulls, but there's an adult on the little bund in the middle. So that was a bird that we wanted to see passing. And this is another bird, but a very long way away. But I hope you can see how beautiful this is. This is a demoiselle crane. Yeah, very, very lovely bird. And they breed in the steppeland areas, but also further east. I'm not sure what the population is in Georgia itself. Probably quite small, but they may actually just be migrants to here. But a lovely bird to see. This is the church I showed you before at the back of uh, um, Kazbegi, but we also have done reptile and amphibian holidays there in Nature Track, and this is called Dinnick's viper. So it's a venomous snake. Looks rather like an adder in many ways, um, and yeah. So we like most of these things, unless you really look for them and are very careful, you don't see anything like this. But we do a range of reptile holidays with that in mind more than anything else. So they sort of focus on it, but that's quite a special one. These are a couple more snakes, but stunning creatures. A trans-Caucasian long-nosed viper, that is, at the top, and then a Schmidt's whip snake, which is a Caucasus Caucasus species down into the Middle East. But yeah, I think the viper at the top is only found in Georgia, and yeah, and maybe a bit further south. Caucasian salamander, um, a green toad. Green toad's quite a widespread species, and then this is the Caucasian brown frog. That's found in several countries around, but yeah. So quite a few things to look out for. Oh, I mentioned tortoises, of course. So we have the spur-thighed tortoise, which is very widespread across much of sort of southern European countries as well. So you may have seen them in Greece and places like that. And the Caspian terrapin. Perhaps one of the easier reptiles to see is this agama. So you may have seen agama lizards in the Middle East or North Africa and places like that, but they have this habit of being quite upright, holding their head up high on the top of rocks to get a view. So they're quite distinctive in their pose, quite large heads. So this is the Caucasian agama. A few butterflies. Um, these are probably species that are very familiar to anyone that's been looking at butterflies in Europe, or even if you're very lucky in Britain. So scarce swallowtail, Camberwell beauty, and the bottom one is the Queen of Spain fritillary. I've actually seen Queen of Spain fritillary in Britain. Yeah, I went to see them in there was a little population, or a year or two they were seen around Minsmere, so I went to see them there. But very common across the channel. This is Parnassus Apollo. This Apollo butterflies, of course, you'd see in the Pyrenees and in the Alps. Parnassus Apollo. And the time of year is good for uh, crocus as well. So I've got this written down: Colchicum triagnum, triginum, I should say. So yeah, so what can I tell you about that? Yeah, we obviously, when the snow melts, you get these sort of carpets of crocus. Very nice too. Some very beautiful scenes. So above the clouds here. And as I mentioned, I was just going to talk about um, some of the other things that are well known from Georgia point of view in terms of bird watching. Anyway, is the flyway. So we've got a couple of routes through along the coast of the Black Sea down, and then down from the sort of wider Russian steppes to the coast across the Caucasus. And that really funnels things over Batumi, this incredible city of Batumi. So all you could ask for a city, but of course, people that go there looking for raptors, they just want to go up on a hill and sit in a deck chair and see this. So the Nature's Rex holiday here is in September when things have finished breeding. So the trip I've been talking about mainly is a spring migration and spring breeding bird trip, and then in the autumn, when the migratory birds of prey are going through, is just after the breeding season. Um, so again, the number of birds going through is colossal. It's over 1 million birds that are going, large eagles and things like that, and then you've got smaller birds like hawks and falcons going through as well. But I think in 2019, the total figure was something like 1,138,000 birds. You can tell I'm reading a note here, can't you? I wouldn't remember that number otherwise. Let's have a look at some of the species. So we have the beautiful pallid harrier. So Montague Terrier is quite a smart bird, but pallid harrier is perhaps even more so. Very light and bounces when it flies along. Beautiful bird. And then the booted eagle. Lovely pale phased booted eagle there. Here's some facts and figures. Now, you probably can't read these small numbers, but if I just talk through, this is the count here. Just if you can't see the word writing is 2022 autumn count in 2022. So 1 million, over 1 million raptors, but 480,000 honey buzzards, 239,000 steppe buzzards. Now, steppe buzzard is a race of the common buzzard. 347,000 black kites, 6,500 booted eagles. Yeah, pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. So that's your sort of numbers you get here. Really quite something. So quite a popular place to go. Right, I have nearly finished my slides, but what I wanted to just talk about, and this isn't anything to do with selling holidays to Nature Trek, but from my personal point of view, Nature Trek are very big and powerful and powerful, big and powerful, rich company, and they've made their money by showing people wildlife. So they're putting some things back into nature and sustainable tourism. So I've just got about 4 slides. I wanted to show you some of the things they're up to. A lot of the butterfly tours that Nature Trek run, they donate 10% to butterfly conservation. But perhaps more far-reaching project was to invest in land in Ecuador based on a contribution from people's flights. And they've got a few projects that they're doing now, but this was perhaps one of the first major ones in the middle of Ecuador. And you can see these 2 areas here, this red bordered nature reserve, existing nature reserve, and an orange bordered one here. And Nature Trek are buying the middle bit to join these 2 areas up. So the area is about twice the size of the City of London. Yeah, really quite an ambitious project, but just to give you a little bit of a flavour of what they've found so far, and perhaps a little bit of a laugh, because they've discovered a new frog which has the Latin name of Nobaya nature trekkie. No idea where they get the names from. They found a lizard, and they've got a plant which is named Blakea attenborough. Again, no idea where they get the names from. But that's some of the things you can see there. Far cry from Georgia, but who wouldn't want to see a mountain tapir and a spectacled bear and a giant antpitter and the cock of the rock? So yeah, quite exciting. But I just wanted to mention that at the end because it's quite nice that a travel company that obviously makes its business by showing people wildlife actually contributes something to conservation projects. So I know they've done another they've invested in a large reserve area in north of Italy, and also they're looking at other areas as well. So it's quite refreshing that they do that. Right, I will stop there, and I'm very happy to answer questions about Georgia, or anything for that matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. That was absolutely fascinating. I've learnt a lot, and the Trans-Caucasian long-nosed viper will stay with me for a while, I think. So yeah, absolutely fascinating. To sort of see all the kind of familiar birds, but in a slightly different guise that we're not used to. I'm afraid to say we have no questions. So if anyone's going to throw anything in last minute, please jump in now. We have a couple of minutes left on the clock, but at the moment, we have no specific questions from the panel, from the group. One from me. Is there anything sort of out there in Georgia that you would love to have seen that has eluded you over the years?
Well, it's a bit of a boring answer because that small pink warbler, the miniatures warbler, I've never seen. But our guide said, I was here last week. He said, and I know the bush it was singing from. Let's go there. So we walked and we went to the bush, and there was not a sign of it whatsoever. So I've never seen one of those. but I think I suppose the spectacle of a good passage of birds of prey. You saw the numbers that were going through would be something I'd love
Yeah,
to see. I've only been in the spring, so those autumn trips, and I think it's the same in in places southern Spain going into Africa and Istanbul, those sort of areas, the Bosphorus, in those sort of funnels of that spectacle. And it's the same for any sort of wildlife spectacle like that. I think if you're there, you've got some time, it'll stay with you. Yeah, so that's probably
yeah,
what
it's properly amazing to see that many raptors in what it's just even one photo, never mind
I
all
couldn't
flying
imagine it.
overhead.
Yeah.
There's been quite a lot in the news lately, and Chris Packham's been sort of campaigning around the issues in Malta and the Met, some places in the Med. Is that kind of thing an issue in Georgia, or is it sort of one of the places in the world where they can deal with that without shooting everything?
Well, there no doubt is, but it's not a traditional pastime like it is in
Right.
several. So yeah, I think the sort of North Africa and the Mediterranean islands is more of a sort of a long-term traditional um, pastime, and past the Middle East as well, Lebanon especially. They're just it's heartbreaking. I've not seen that any evidence of that in, that's certainly the hotspot of that unpleasant sort of tradition, and I haven't seen it in Georgia. It's a incredibly it's just a wonderful place. Everyone was just so lovely, and it's like a mixture of Eastern Europe and Asia and the Middle East mixed together, which you'd understand really from where it is. But yeah, I just loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks fascinating. So yeah, thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated. I think we've all learned a lot. So thank you very much. Um, Very quickly, just touching on some more events that are coming up for Wharfdale Nats. There is on Saturday 22nd, there's a birding trip to St Aidan's. At 7:30, we have the next Christchurch meeting, which is talking about wastewater in the Wharf with Rick Batterby and Karen Shackleton. And on the 9th of December, the Changing Biodiversity of Wharfdale, a Naturalist Perspective by our President, Ian Brand. So looking forward to seeing you all at some of those. And sorry, at Sunday, the 14th of December, a birding trip to Harewood. So some good raptor action there in the red kites. Not quite the Georgia raptor passage, but I'm sure it's always a treat to see them. Thank you very much again, Richard. It's been a great talk. We've all really enjoyed it and we've learned a lot. So thanks very much for your time. So
Thank you.
on
Nice
that,
to meet you. Thank you.
thanks very much, everyone. Until the next one. Thank you.